Hello and welcome to the first ever Minipod episode of Pod People. I'm Matisse Van Rossum and I'm joined as always by the good boys, Ben Sheets.
Bow, bow, bow.
And
Ooh.
Eugene Lundeen.
Hello. This is a special late night recording for us.
Yeah, we never record this late.
Oh.
This week we're coming at you with a little mini review of the film Mom and Dad, directed by Brian Taylor of the Neville Dean Taylor duo that did Crank and Crank 2. Two of my favorite batshit crazy films.
I've only seen the second, but I can agree on that. They are batshit insane.
And this movie just falls right into that batshit territory.
Oh, yeah. It's
very comfortably.
we're just going to jump right into it. This is a movie about some sort of virus or signal or something that causes parents to develop murderous desires towards their children. And it stars Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair as two parents going through sort of a midlife crisis, dealing with their kind of shitty teenage daughter and not super bratty little boy, but...
Well, he did leave, like, a dead animal in the back of the dude's car.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't say the anger that we're supposed to feel arises from the signal is necessarily the anger from their kids and how crappy they are, but that they are unsatisfied in their own lives.
Sure.
As you mentioned, hitting their midlife crisis, they feel old and they don't like being old.
Well, Nicolas Cage is unhappy in his job and pines for the good old days of driving around in his dad's fucking Firebird and banging chicks and stuff.
Right.
And
Selma Blair longs for the days of having a career and trying to go to one of those like hip-hop classes.
She's kind of horrified at the idea that she's becoming boring.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
And
Housewife.
how she's always sort of considered it her purpose to have children, but as they get older, you know, especially the teenagers, they don't appreciate you, and it's like, well, at this point, what am I even for? That's kind of how she feels. So it's a nice little framing narrative for this sort of central conceit that for some reason all of these parents across the country are being drawn to kill their kids. It's sort of like a physical manifestation of I think pretty common feelings for people going through midlife crises.
Yeah, and they just like jump into the main conceit of the movie without explaining much, because this movie really doesn't have much fat on it, honestly.
No,
like,
it's very tight.
A slim 80 minutes, and it kind of just breezes by. You get the same style of kinetic editing as like Crank and Crank 2, where quick hyper adrenaline shots, and at times it kind of feels weird.
Well, a sound design is also something that helps to guide the pacing of the movie, which the music was done by this DJ named Dr.
Mr. Bill?
Mr. Bill. Yeah,
Mr.
Mr. Bill. That's right. There are things that sound very loud, I think, in the film, in terms of like the kind of music that gets played, and it's not really music. It's just like really weird warbles.
It's
and
like
things like
dubstep
that.
meets noise.
Yeah, he honestly, a lot of it kind of reminds me of like Eskimo meets One O Tricks Point Never. It's very disjointed, very atonal.
But it feels different from other soundtracks.
Yeah, it's very distinctive, and actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. I think the sound design is
It worked pretty well.
Is like the music, when it is music, is good, and then like the sort of sound effects that you're talking about, they sort of like drive home a lot of the visuals that are happening. It's immersive. Like, this is a super high octane movie, and it's very much a super black comedy, because it is funny. You know, like it's zany.
I mean, the shining star in this, and certainly most people shouldn't be surprised by it, but Nicolas Cage really fires off.
He is
in this
up to 11 in this one.
Although,
Holy
you know,
shit.
He's incredible in this, and he's like perfect vintage, batshit insane Nicolas Cage. But for me, I think the real star is Selma Blair.
I think she does a really good job.
I think she's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely more toned down than Nicolas Cage, but we sort of, I feel like we spend more time with her. We get into her psyche. She really feels like the main character to me.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. We follow more of her motivations and the
She's
things
more
going
of
on
a
in her life.
three-dimensional character.
Yeah,
for sure,
definitely.
Than Nicolas Cage is.
But for a movie like this, I think Nicolas Cage understood it perfectly how to play it, and that's something that's so wonderful about Nicolas Cage, his willingness to dive into these absurd characters.
Oh yeah, it's the perfect casting.
We see flashbacks and we see moments before this outbreak or attack, and he's still pretty crazy. It's like he could have very well just gone on a murderous rampage without this signal actually ever existing. He already seems like a nut job.
And like the key moment that we see of that is the flashback when he like buys a pool table and spends all day like building it and very painstakingly like making sure it's level and everything's perfect. And then as soon as it's finished, Selma Blair comes down into the basement and is like, when were you going to tell me about this? Like, we're broke. This is not the time for you to be building a man cave. And he just absolutely goes off the wall and takes a sledgehammer to the pool table that he's been building for hours. And I think I would not be surprised if there was a lot of improv on Nicolas Cage's behalf. Not the smashing itself, but
the
hokey pokey. He's just like yelling the hokey pokey. And then even afterwards,
because after that, like, it's just this mini monologue all about how he used to be this hard rockin' wild dude back in his younger days, and how if his younger self could see him now, he would be ashamed to know he grew up to be such a fat loser punk. And it's a sad thing because, well, Nicolas Cage, he's an older guy. We've heard about all of his issues financially, and it almost seems there is a bit that you could read from his actual life.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That whole part. And there are other parts in the movie that are like this, but it feels so natural despite the craziness that I think that I would not be surprised if there was some improvisation and some riffing going on where Brian Taylor just kind of like gave Nic Cage a goal and just sort of let him run with it. That's what that felt like to me, but not in a bad way.
No, not at all. And with both actors, Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair, I think they were both great choices for that, because certainly Selma Blair doesn't have the same sort of career progression, but that she stagnated after a certain while. She was in a whole bunch of stuff, and then she was supposed to be one of those big stars, and it just never really got that way.
It's a shame. I think she's really underrated. I think the last thing I even saw her in before this was her bit part in The People vs. OJ.
That's right, because she played Kris Jenner, right?
She was in that anger management Charlie Sheen sitcom.
Oh God!
That's unfortunate. Yeah.
I think she's really talented. I think she's really talented.
As we mentioned, the movie itself, that idea, parents going crazy, killing their children, isn't explored a whole lot further than it's an attack.
It just is.
And it's speculated that it's done because it's a way of destroying our futures by killing our children, and it's this self-destructive cycle. And I like that as enough of an explanation. I didn't want any more.
And the way they first show it is so great. Like,
oh yes, the first
multiple parents start calling their kids.
Well, no, and also the first shot.
The very
we see is a mother leaving her baby in her car as a train is about to hit it, and that is one thing I was very worried about, knowing these are by the same people who did Crank. The violence doesn't really get there, which when it's about murdering kids, I feel is probably a better move.
It shows a surprising amount of restraint.
Right. There was a point where I sort of am like, is this PG-13? This doesn't feel really like an R film.
A point where a new mother was giving birth to a baby, and she was holding her newborn baby in her hands, and I was getting so worried when I saw it that she was gonna just like
throw the baby,
flailing her baby around above her head like a lasso or something.
Well, they're like, it is kind of bloody. Like there's some a little bit of gore, but it's all when the adults are being killed or something.
Right.
Like it's they don't go full Darren Aronofsky with the child murder. There's tons of child murder, but none of it is shown. They always cut away. But like when the daughter's boyfriend like goes home and his dad tries to kill him, and then his dad falls onto the broken bottle.
Yeah, that's one of the few moments where there really is.
Really gory.
Yeah,
it's like,
there's a lot of blood.
You see it, like it's in his neck, so you know that they were just like well, we can go over the top with this, but we need to not like show too much like child death.
And whatever it was, whether it was their decision or it was a studio thing that says you can't show the murder of kids like this, it was for the best, and I think worked in the film's favor because it showed it didn't have to rely on the shock value of seeing a kid getting murdered, that you could still enjoy it for this insane premise. Through that premise, as we mentioned, like destroying your future, there's a whole lot of that we see through the adults in this film. This dissatisfaction, this feeling that in parts too, that your kids don't respect you the way that you want, but also that you didn't turn out into the person you wanted.
Right.
Which for a movie like this that's so ridiculous, to still have a concept like that put in, I thought it did that pretty well.
I think so
playing
too.
Between the two.
What I like so much about this movie is, unlike other movies where there's like a virus or something that makes people go crazy and start killing each other, the parents are totally like sane throughout all of this. You know,
right?
It's not
they don't
just
go
like
silent and
they're not
zombie mode.
Yeah, they're not like glassy-eyed crazy. You know, like at a certain point, the kids have barricaded themselves in the basement, and Blair and Nicolas Cage are like communicating and like bantering and like discussing and planning ways to get at the kids. You know, it's not just like, oh, they're like zombies now. And also that we see multiple times in the movie that nobody ever hurts anybody other than their like own children.
Yeah, there was a great like a little aside TV interview in it with Bokeem Woodbine.
Oh yes, that's right. He shows
his
like,
brief little
second.
cameo.
Yeah. And he's talking as a parent about, you know, how he feels no remorse for killing his kid, and he's talking just like a normal person, and it's
oh yeah, that
cool
moment's
little...
great. He's like I'm trying to like muster up some crocodile tears so you don't think I'm a monster, and the news reporter is like, so do you think like what's happening is bad? And he's like, oh yeah, it's absolutely terrible. They're like, but not for you. And he's like, well, for me it just felt right. So it's just like they know that there's something weird going on, but it's basically just like the remorse is just not there. And like at the beginning when things are first starting to escalate, we're at the school and all of the parents are like crowded outside the gate, like waiting like hungry sharks, you know. Then all hell breaks loose and they're like chasing all the kids across the football field.
Okay, and it starts off because there's one kid who probably doesn't exist. What child out there is honestly gonna want to hop a fence so that they could be with their mother? I maybe I just don't have that well of a relationship, and I'm not that young anymore. That kid's a fool and a nerd. A little nerd. Baby. None of those other kids, they're like, I'm fine staying behind this
fuck
gate.
You,
like,
mom and dad.
Right, they're like, let these parents get away from us. But this one dumb kid jumps over and then he gets keyed to death.
That whole scene where like all the parents are chasing the kids across the football field, and like the
security guard,
the school security guard is like punching the shit out of this one woman. He's like, I told you to fucking stay back. but the daughter and her friend are like trying to hide in the student parking lot, and they see a bunch of parents coming towards them, but the other parents just run past, and that's when they start to realize, like, you know, they're only going after their own kids.
Right, which I enjoy that. It makes the threat of it more direct, because now it's not just any sort of adult stranger coming at you. It's going to be your mom and your dad.
Right, well, it's
Nic Cage and Selma Blair, which is awesome for them to be villains, because they're both at work when this starts to happen, or Nic Cage is at work and Selma Blair is off at like that hip hop class thing. So they're not together when this attack occurs, but once they meet up, it's fantastic.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
A great villain pair, and they have a good amount of just banter between each other.
They have very good chemistry in this
Even
movie.
though Selma Blair's, I don't know, it feels like she's like 20 years younger than Nicolas Cage. I don't know what the actual age difference is. But
maybe like 10 years. Maybe Nic Cage is what, and he's in his 50s at this point. Yeah, and Selma Blair is like, she's in her early 40s.
Well, I wouldn't say that. If anything, I'd say late
I think
30s
so.
here.
No, I'm pretty sure she's in her early 40s.
Yeah, you're right. She is 45.
Oh, yeah. Talking about like when they get together and are going after their own kids, like that's really the meat of the film. Like we get some setup stuff at the beginning, like the first 20 or 30 minutes, but then eventually like we get it to the house and it becomes much more contained, and they have to start figuring out a way to get at their kids in the basement. They try to saw through the door, but then it's discovered that the little boy has found Nic Cage's handgun, and he's taken it because he shoots through the door and hits Selma Blair in the arm. And so they decide that they're going to asphyxiate them by running a garden hose from the gas line behind the oven through one of the basement windows, which they cover up with dirt and duct tape all the seams on the door. So they're gonna kill the kids that way. And as they're setting it up, it's a great moment. Nic Cage is just like, "This is a great idea, honey." And like from outside, she like knocks on the on the wall, like it's ready to go, turn it on. He's like, "Love you."
Right, and that's the great thing too, that they don't just become empty-minded once this attack occurs, is that they still act like a couple when they're plotting to murder their children. And it just adds a levity to the whole thing.
It
all works for me.
In a weird way, it's almost kind of sweet, because like we see up till this point that like their marriage is kind of falling apart. Like Nic Cage is like fantasizing about being young and all the chicks he used to fuck back then. Selma Blair's friend is like telling her that she should cheat on him and stuff like that. But with this shared goal of murdering their children, as morbid as it is, they kind of like reconnect a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's in a weird way, it's almost like it's got like some sort of rom-com elements to it in a very dark and twisted way. And I think all of that works really, really well.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys felt about all of the flashbacks that occurred, because it happens maybe 3-4 times, and they're usually during moments of pretty high tension. And during the first couple, I felt that it was very jarring, that they're taking asides to a moment that was keeping me invested and seems really out of place. But as it went on, I felt, because the whole point was to show this deterioration of the family bond. I just wanted to know how you guys
I
felt
think
about
they're
that.
necessary.
Yeah, it never felt too jarring to me. Like, certainly they were abrupt.
Well, no,
but,
I won't say the scenes themselves are what are the problem, because I think those are what elevate the film over being just a slasher movie or something like that. That those are when they actually try and add in these heftier ideas. It's the moments when they're delivered is what I want to see if you guys felt they were appropriate pacing.
You know, it's abrupt the first couple of times, but by the end they've done it enough times that it's like it sort of just becomes like a part of the style for me. And what I like about it is, in comparison to something like either of the Crank movies that are basically just nonstop batshit insanity from beginning to end. At a certain point, the flashbacks in this sort of become like breathers, where it's like you've got these moments, like these lengthy moments of really high intensity, and then it just kind of gets quiet for a second. And then just as quickly as it got quiet, it jumps right back into that absolute, like, crazy shit.
Yeah, it felt abrupt, but it never felt jarring. It felt like it fit pretty well with the whole pacing of
there's
the movie.
Usually, in most of them, there's some kind of match cut or a thematic transition. It's like something that is happening in the present is what triggers the flashback, you know? It's not like random. Like when Selma Blair gets shot and she's like, what the fuck? Like, you really are having a midlife crisis. Like a handgun, and it like cuts the little kid holding the gun, and then it cuts to the flashback of him like finding the gun and playing with it in his underwear and stuff. It takes you out of the intensity for a second and then throws you right back in, but it doesn't feel too jarring because it's all related, you know?
Right, and I guess that helps they put it in the middle of those moments, because when they take that breather, they can jump immediately into
right back into
action.
it. Yeah, that doesn't bother me at all.
No, and as I said, it really was only something I noticed in the beginning. As they did it more and more, it began to show its reasoning.
What I like about it is because I do think the flashbacks are necessary, and they're still just as well done as the rest of the stuff. So it kind of shows that, like, at least Brian Taylor, I don't know how much involvement Aaron Neville-Dean had in this, if any, but at least Brian Taylor is capable of more than just that balls to the wall craziness that we get from Crank, you know? Like,
and that's what I found so satisfying.
Right, he's capable of doing softer moments, you know, really building characters, because he wrote this too, and it shows that he knows how to write characters, you know, like
and certainly characters for this kind of movie. Mm-hmm, who knows how well it'd work in any other context, but for this, it's perfect. He's found a very good niche style. Because I feel like this kind of stuff can get so obnoxious in the hands of another person that doesn't actually have anything they're trying to say or do. They're just trying to be flashy. Because
it's easy to make a movie like this almost too self-aware, like, right,
because it's so good, like, you want to point out all the flaws in it, and you want to
certainly this movie is a little self-aware, but it's not, it never like feels like it's just
it takes itself seriously.
It never pats itself on the back for
it's
not
never
taking itself 100% seriously.
Yeah.
You know, it takes its world seriously without you know, making the characters serious.
It knows that it's you know, sort of like a grindhouse style film, but it's never like nudge nudge, wink wink, like, look at how clever we are, you know? Like,
exactly,
it plays it very seriously. What I also really like about it is, in something like this, like, the kids are supposed to be like the heroes, and it would be natural to make them like really the center of it, but it's not. Like,
no, they don't spend a lot of time with the kids.
The kids are kind of secondary. Like, you know, you're rooting for them because they're just innocents caught up in this like crazy, horrible thing where the people who they love most.
But they're honestly the most boring part.
The flattest, you don't spend like. I like that they're technically the heroes, but Selma Blair and Nicolas Cage are really the main characters. It's called Mom and Dad. It's about Mom and Dad.
For the boyfriend, though, because he was getting fucked up left and right.
He got, like, there's so many moments in the movie where you're sure he's dead.
Yes.
And then he somehow manages not to be. He gets fucking bashed his head into the floor by Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
He gets thrown down the fucking stairs.
He gets stabbed in the face.
He hits. Oh yes.
He gets stabbed in the mouth with the coat hanger.
They trap Selma Blair in a closet, and she breaks out, and she has a coat hanger all unraveled, trying to stab, and she manages to poke it through his mouth. Which, alright, like, I mean, I'm not gonna complain about that silliness, but man, that looked uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. I want to talk about the plan plan that the daughter comes up with once she realizes that they're trying to gas them out.
Oh, yes.
Because I thought that was actually really clever. She finds a book of matches and a roll of duct tape, and she pulls off the striking strip of the book of matches and tapes it to the floor, and then tapes several matches to the bottom of the door, so if it's opened, it'll strike them. And then she and the little boy like find a way into the walls and like crawl up into the attic from the basement. And so when Nic Cage and Selma Blair try to come in, the whole fucking basement blows up. I thought that was awesome.
It was really well done. I thought it was really clever.
It's clever, yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't get is they just like they crawl in like through the walls like
they find a crawl space and get into the walls.
The crawl space manages to get them to the second level above like all
that's a little weird, but
the layout of that is confusing. It doesn't really matter, but it's one of those I thought like, wow, that's odd. That's odd where they ended up because they're in the basement, but they end up all the way like in the top of the house.
And I mean, it's also kind of unreasonable that Nic Cage and Selma Blair would be as uninjured as they are by the explosion.
Well, because Nic Cage gets blown back. I thought
like
he was actually dead, and he looked like burnt to a crisp when we saw him. But I guess it was sort of out of focus, so he was actually fine. When we see him, he's a little ashed up, but he's got a little like
Fruit Loops stuck to his face. Oh man, and then his parents show up.
Which
I love that setup at the beginning before anything is going wrong. Like the daughter's trying to go to a movie with her boyfriend or something, and the parents are like, no, we can't. Like your grandparents are coming over tonight. And it's like, oh fuck, grandma and grandpa. Grandpa always tells his gory Vietnam stories and shit. And then at one point, like Nic Cage and Selma Blair have the kids cornered in the kitchen. They're about to kill them, and then the doorbell rings and they just look at each other, and Silver's like, oh shit, that's right, your parents were coming tonight.
Right, but they haven't pieced it together yet at that point that Nic Cage's parents also have the craziness in them, so they start trying to kill him.
Well, it's great. Nic Cage is like, I'll be right back. He goes, he answers the door, and his mom pepper sprays him immediately.
And his dad, played by Lance Henriksen, is shuffling around like an old man, trying to stab him
with
in
a
the
knife.
gut. And he's shambling. It's not... None of it's very elegant. But,
what's
funny.
Great about that is when the little boy like breaks free and he's running, and Nic Cage starts chasing him, and then Lance Henriksen starts chasing Nic Cage.
And it just becomes like a train of chasing.
Like a Benny Hill thing.
Yeah.
Oh man,
around. I can imagine the song going off. And Selma Blair Selma Blair has a moment of clarity, and she tries to convince the grandmother to not kill anyone. And the grandmother tells Selma Blair, you were never good enough for my son, and calls her a whore.
You're a whore.
Yeah, it's just the way she says it, it's just so matter of fact. And maybe there's just something so funny about like an older woman just being so shitty.
So vulgar.
Yeah, vulgar. She's trying to argue with her about that, but also her son's getting chased around by Nic Cage, so it's like...
Right, and then she also then tries to start going after her daughter again, so it's like there's
immediately
which
after.
I'm glad they didn't make her not crazy anymore, that it was only a small moment, like, oh, she's still crazy. Because
well, that's what I like so much about it. It seems like other than the desire to kill their own children, they're still totally rational and totally in control. So even though Selma Blair and Nic Cage are trying to kill their kids, they're trying to talk their parents out of, or Nic Cage's parents out of killing him. So it creates this really interesting dichotomy that works really well for me.
Yeah, I think it's a dynamic that works much better than just making them, thoughtless, brainless,
What I will say, something that I think is underexplored and ultimately kind of confusing by the end of the movie, is there's a couple of times where like a monitor or like a TV, depending where they are, will like turn on to static, and you hear like this ringing, so it's like kind of implied that maybe that's what's driving them to kill the kids, because it happens first when the boyfriend goes home and his dad is like passed out on the couch, and while they're fighting, it keeps cutting to the TV, which is just showing static.
It happens at
the hospital.
Yeah.
After Selma Blair's sister gives birth, like the life support monitor or whatever next to the bed goes to static, and that's when she starts trying to kill the baby. But that's the only 2 times it happens in the movie. And every like for the rest of it, like the parents are still trying to kill the kids, not being exposed to that at all. I was just like, is that supposed to be the cause of it? Or it felt like they were trying to get at something but didn't commit to it enough for it to actually be a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. Well, and they didn't want to outright say what was causing it.
I was fine with the no explanation.
Right, but it felt like they wanted to at least try and give some sort of tether to the audience so they knew when something popped up, we could expect this sort of situation to happen.
And I think I don't know if they were even trying to make an intelligent decision with it. I think it was more of an aesthetic, trying to portray, like you were saying, to the audience.
Right, and static on a TV is not the worst way to do it, because I mean, it's this like persistent chatter we hear in the background.
White noise.
And
it just, for me, it's about the only thing in this movie that didn't work for me.
Well, because it doesn't have any sort of further development, and also just sort of gets forgotten.
Exactly. It feels inconsistent. Like,
that's a shame. I was hoping that the baby and all that would come back in some way as well, and that never did.
I do love the nursery area where they have all the newborns and
all the
just
dads
a crowd of dads just staring at all the babies.
I love that. In regards to the static thing, like, I don't mind it as a visual motif, but I just wish if that's what they were trying to do with it, they would have been a little more consistent.
Yeah, like, it was a little inconsistent.
You could have even just had, like, the TV on playing static, like, in the house, like, the whole time.
Right, well, yeah, because it's not, I don't think we even see it on when the housekeeper murders her daughter.
No. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's inconsistent, but because of the way they edit it, they make it clear that we're supposed to notice it. Like, it's supposed to be, they're drawing our attention to it, but then they don't really deliver. For a movie as great as this, like, it's a super nitpicky complaint, but it really was the only thing.
Right, because everything else seems to have its purpose, so...
it feels
it's
so
the outlier.
It's so lean and so devoid of fat that when there's just even a little inconsistency like that, like, it stood out to me.
I agree with that. I mean, it felt a little out there and odd, but it didn't really take away too much for me personally.
No, it does. Like, that's why I said it's a super nitpicky thing. It's just about all I can come up with to criticize.
The one thing. We might as well get into it.
The ending?
Yeah, that I have a little bit of a problem
That's the only other thing for me, too.
The ending of it. We have this chase scene between the kid, Nicolas Cage, and Lance Hendrickson. They get to the garage, and the kid is, like, hiding in the car, and Nic Cage is, like, smashing the car, trying to get to him.
With a pickaxe.
Yeah, and he kind of gets stuck in the window trying to grab the kid, and then Lance Hendrickson just starts stabbing Nic Cage in the ass.
In the butt, yeah.
Yeah, so Nic Cage is starting to slam on the gas back and forth, and eventually he gets the car out of the driveway.
Well, he crashes it through the garage door.
Yeah.
As it swings around, it, like, T-bones the grandma who's outside, and then Lance Henriksen, like, flies off the roof of it and, like, pulps his head on the hood. And then, yeah, just when you think that Nic Cage and Selma Blair are about to go back and kill the kids, the boyfriend, who is somehow still alive after all of the shit that happens to him, smashes Selma Blair in the face with a shovel. And then we get a hard cut to the basement, where a very injured Selma Blair and Nic Cage are tied up, and the kids are sort of down there just watching them.
the parents are asking to be freed, and the kids are like, no, we don't trust you.
The daughter starts basically repeating verbatim the speech that Selma Blair gave her earlier in the movie in the car. Like, your father and I, like, we want to trust you, but, you know, sometimes you just make it so hard. And so she delivers that line back to Selma Blair, which I thought was great. And then they're like, oh, we love you so much. And then Nic Cage is like, we love you, but sometimes you just make us want to... Credits. Cut off mid-sentence. It felt like The Sopranos.
Part of me likes how abrupt it is, but it at the same time kind of feels like a cop-out. Like they couldn't figure out how to really end it.
I get it, because it honestly feels like a joke for parents, which also makes me wonder, we follow Nic Cage and Selma Blair so much, this movie might be directed to a bit of an older audience.
Well, it's certainly not directed to kids.
Well, no, but it's not really directed to just teenagers. I know what you mean.
I'm giving you shit.
Well, thank you. But I'm trying to say that I think that final moment is supposed to be a chuckle for the way parents feel about their children. They love them, but sometimes they make them want to, beat them up.
Why I oughta.
Yeah, I want to fucking beat you up, kid.
And, you know, it does kind of bother me the way that it ends, but at the same time, I don't know how I would want to end that movie. Yeah. I don't know how I would want that movie to end.
I wouldn't bothered by it.
I wouldn't want it to end with them killing Nic Cage and Selma Blair. I wouldn't want it to end with them killing the kids, vice versa. I don't know how I would have ended it.
Yeah.
And in a way, even though the ending is very abrupt and kind of unsatisfying, at the same time, in a way, it's kind of weirdly perfect.
Yeah, I think it's not the worst ending by any means. It just feels abrupt.
That's the part that's jarring. I didn't feel like any of the transitions to flashbacks and stuff in the rest of the movie were jarring. The ending is what's jarring.
Yeah.
It does feel like a cop-out, and it does feel unsatisfying, but I legitimately can't decide how I would want it to end another way. Like we were talking about with 10 Cloverfield Lane in the last episode, like how it would be so much better if it just ended when she got out of the bunker or when she saw the alien ship. Like there's not a moment like that in this movie. Like, I mean, I guess you could end it with Selma Blair getting hit in the face with the shovel when it cuts to black, but I think that would have been maybe more unsatisfying, you know?
Yeah. The ending doesn't bother me.
Not too much.
Like, it feels fitting. Like, I think the gag at the end, it doesn't feel cheap or anything.
It's weird. It's the kind of thing that I feel like it will bother me less on future rewatches. Because this is the second time I've seen this. The first time I was very drunk and don't remember much at all, hence why I needed to rewatch it. But I remember being much more bothered by the ending the first time I saw it. And this time I was kind of just like, yeah, okay. Not super satisfying, but doesn't bother me too much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Before we jump into ratings, I do want to comment on something that I particularly noticed this time in sort of the way it's edited and a lot of the stuff they do. This reminds me very much of a 70s film.
Yeah.
Well, all that, I mean, the credit sequence in the
opening credits is super 70s. It's kind of like a James Bond intro, you know, like with the song over the top of it. But even aside from that, like just the sort of the editing style and the characters and just sort of like the way the story is constructed in general, like it felt very much like a 70s film.
Yeah, it definitely has kind of a no-nonsense, grindhousey, exploitation-y type of editing style, which I thought was really cool.
Without being gratuitous.
Yeah, well, and it's matched with that classic Crank, you know, hyperkinetic editing style. And I thought the pairing of those two styles worked really well. Yeah.
Stylistically, it's great, and it's gorgeously shot and really well scored. And the sound design outside of the music is great too. Yeah, unless you guys have anything else, I think we can jump into ratings.
Well, I'll
wanna
start it
start?
off. Yeah. This was a real surprise for me. I think that Crank High Voltage is a really fun movie, but it's much schlockier and more shocking, and I think it attempts to be more shocking than this was, which I was very happy about because I was a bit worried this would go too far out there. This surprised me. There's actually a good amount of thought put into the characters, and it keeps them compelling and kept me wanting to watch it outside of just seeing any sort of action or any kills. And I think that that's pretty damn good on the director and writer from the Crank series
Yeah.
to make me care otherwise.
Brian Taylor,
And-
someone to pay attention to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was looking at some of the other stuff he did. He's got duds. He wrote Jonah Hex. He
Oh,
also
boy.
Yeah,
him
that was
and
a
that guy Neville
Taylor.
Dean. They directed Gamer.
Oh, yes, they did. I
Yes.
forgot about that.
I still have never seen that one.
It's
It's
got some good stuff in it. It's pretty dumb, but it's got some good
Did,
Crank sensibilities.
Ghost Rider 2,
Ooh.
that's right,
which is
that's right.
entertaining. But
Well,
Yes.
one thing I'll say about Gamer is that Michael C. Hall is fantastic in it.
yeah,
But that's
good. That's
that-
besides
that's beside the
rest
point.
of the so
What would you rate this?
yeah, I would give this a 4 out of 5 pods because I found myself really enjoying this movie. This isn't trying to say a whole lot. And what it is trying to say, it does do well about what it must be like to get to that middle age. You're not cool young adult anymore. Now you're a father. Now you're a mother. And about the burdens and the insanity that can come from that. So, 4 for me.
what really bumps me out about this movie is I feel like a lot of people are going to overlook it or miss it because, it came out like,
Yeah.
I want to say like a month ago, but it was just straight to video on demand. I know they played a few midnight screenings at like festivals.
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff,
super
but
under the radar.
They didn't really have a wide theatrical release. And, this is one of those movies that I almost feel like could get a big cult following if they released it in theaters as like a midnight movie.
I think it still could if it finds its way to the right audience. I think it could definitely still become a cult hit. It's certainly a good enough movie to do that.
and you have crazy Nic Cage at some of his craziest, which is always good.
And I think that's going to be the draw for people. That's what's going to get it onto people's notice is the ones who love Nic Cage at his craziest because this is Nic Cage at his craziest.
I know that Taylor and Neville Dean, they just started a new series on Sci-Fi called Happy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's supposed to be okay, but hopefully it will get more people checking out their filmography. Hopefully they've also seen Crank and they say, oh, the Crank guys are doing this? Well, let's see what else they've done recently because they will be very happy with Mom and Dad
Yeah.
if they're a fan of the Crank films too.
What would you rate this, Ben?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, this is a future cult classic, I think. Years from now, people look back to this movie and look at it fondly. Like they do with the Crank movies, and it's easy to dismiss schlocky movies as just schlock, but I think there's more to this, deeper themes at work here, and, there's an art form to the kinetic stylings and pacing. Yeah, it's just an entertaining ride. I would give it a solid 4.5.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with both of you guys. I think you're right. Like the sort of schlockiness aside, and I wouldn't even consider this a particularly schlocky movie, but like, yeah, you can tell that like if you do look past just like the really high octane like violent stuff, there's something more here. I think it's a really great representation of what it's like to be a parent, especially with teenagers, like going through midlife crisis. I think they really sum it up best in the flashback after Nic Cage destroys the pool table, where they're like sitting on the ground and they've sort of like come together. And he's like, man, we used to be Brent and Kendall, and now we're just mom and dad. You know, I think that really encapsulates the frustrations that manifest themselves as like this murderous desire. After a first very drunken viewing, I gave this film 4, but on a second rewatch, it's a very strong 4.5 for me. I think this is a fucking dope movie. And if we can help get it onto some people's radar, then all the fucking better. So
yeah, watch this movie.
Watch this fucking movie.
You might have to rent it on Amazon or YouTube or something.
Yeah, find it. It's worth your time, and it's short. It does not wear out its welcome. It's very good from beginning to end. And so that gives Mom and Dad a very strong rating of 4.3 pods out of 5.
Yeah, so I guess this is the second 2018 horror movie we've seen. This is the favorite for me so far. I mean, if you compare it to Cloverfield Paradox,
it's not hard. Yeah,
it's not.
But hey, we have Annihilation coming out soon, so that's a whole other breed of movie, it seems, compared to these two.
By the time we drop this, Annihilation will be out already. But that's what you can expect from the next episode. It's going to be another little mini pod like this, but talking about Alex Garland's Annihilation, which I'm super stoked for.
If you're listening and you want to make sure that you either check the film out so you can see what we think, or if you want to wait on it and then let us recommend it to you or not, know that it's only a couple weeks away. You do not have to wait much longer.
But I imagine, it's coming out, today's Monday, it comes out this Friday.
It's all going to be happening very soon, so.
But
don't worry about that.
I'm sure Annihilation we're gonna get pretty heavily into spoilers. I can already tell.
Oh yeah.
And it seems to me like the kind of movie that you should see before you listen to us talk about it. But anyway, that's beside the point. Thank you, as always, for listening. If you like the show, you can give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Just take 30 seconds out of your day to do that. We really, really appreciate it. You can follow the show on Twitter and Facebook at PodPeoplePod on both sites. Engage with us. Send us some hot takes, some movies you want to hear us talk about. All that good stuff. We're going to try to do more of these mini pods in the future. So if there are any single movies that you'd like to hear an episode devoted to, hit us up.
I want to also plug Eugene and I have become mom and dads for hire. So if you need a mom and dad for your party, for your funeral, for your graduation, hit us up.
And on that note, I have become a spoiled child for hire. If you need a large, bearded, grown man to come to your location and behave like a toddler, I do that, and for not even that much money either. I'm open to negotiation.
Well, now that gives me an idea. For anyone else out there looking for a perfect, complete family, we got a mom and a dad and a spoiled little brat right
You can
over
hire
here,
us
so.
all. It's actually cheaper if you bundle us together.
Yeah, right, the bundle package. So anyone out there, if you're all alone and your mom and dad ran out on you because they didn't love you, then we'll love you. And Matisse will beat you up because he'll be the best brother you ever had.
Yeah, the bestest, beatingest brother.
So there you go. It's really all about family. That's why we're here in the first place.
It's really all about family.
Isn't it always? God bless mom and dad.
Well, the show is produced by Ben and edited by yours truly. Ben is also the artist responsible for our theme music, so dabs always for that. We'll be back with a mini pod of Annihilation. Thanks as always for listening. I'm Matisse Van Rossum.
I'm Ben Sheets.
And I am Eugene Lundeen.
We are the pod people, and maybe call your parents once in a while.
Yeah, give a call.
They're thinking about you.
Don't wait for them to call you. Make the initiative, mister. Your mother misses you, and you need those $50. So get on that.
You're grounded.